The Pigman. What's the difference between use and abuse?
This novel is a culmination of several valuable lessons that are applicable in our own lives. The time frame for this story occurs around the 1950s. It becomes apparent that this is the time frame based on things such as their technology, behavior, and morals. Two friends, John and Lorraine, are up to no good when they con a prank call victim into donating $10 for a false charity, when in reality it is money that they will use for their own pleasure. However, when they go to collect the donation, they not only gather the money, but also a friend, Mr. Pignotti. Together, John and Lorraine share a special bond with the elderly Pignotti, and they learn not only about him, but also about themselves.
John is a classic troubled teenager whose parents don't accept him for who he is, nor give him the strict household he needs. He is a rabble-rouser who always needs to do something unusual to acquire attention. John drinks, smokes, and does what he wants because no figure of authority is there to stop him. His only best friend is Lorraine, whose character resembles a polar opposite of John. Befriending Mr. Pignotti and losing Mr. Pignotti gave John something he had never felt before: guilt.
Angelo Pignotti appears to be only a friendly old man with a penchant for the company of young people when John and Lorraine first meet him. However, as time progresses and their friendship deepens, a lonely widower whose mind is wandering is revealed. In the beginning of their relationship, Mr. Pignotti tells John and Lorraine, who are posing as charity workers, that his wife is on a trip with her sister in California. However, while exploring his house, the teenagers discover that his wife is actually deceased, but they keep this revelation to themselves. Soon, all pretenses between the three are dropped, and their relationship blooms. Because of Mr. Pignotti's generous, trusting nature and gentle ways, he eventually comes to be the father figure that John and Lorraine have never had and sorely need.
Lorraine is not your typical high school sophomore girl. She makes many observations and judgments of other characters in the story. She is many times hard-hearted as her mother is very insensitive to her, calling her ugly and implying how boys could never be interested in her. Though she tries to be the authority figure in her best friend John's life, she is more a voice that goes in one of his ears and goes out the other. Lorraine is not quite as reckless as John, but learns the same lesson about breaking trust.
All Lorraine and John wanted was $10 for their charity, but little did they know that all Mr. Pignotti wanted was someone to talk to, a friend. John and Lorraine knew nothing about Mr. Pignotti, but yet he was so open and willing to do anything for them. Mr. Pignotti had offered them into his house and provided his divine wine and sweet chocolate. John and Lorraine were a bit taken back by his offer, but took it. After their first few visits, John and Lorraine liked the idea of visiting Mr. Pignotti daily. The more and more the teenagers spent with him, the more they were enlightened with himself and about his life. With both teenagers' family life not very strong, Mr. Pignotti played a great role while taking them to toy stores, visiting the zoo, to meet Bobo, buying them roller skates, and teaching them what trust and true friendship is like.
The key symbol in this book is the use of Mr. Pignotti's monkey he calls a friend at the local zoo, Bobo. The monkey is happier when Pignotti is around and can feed him peanuts. This also causes Mr. Pignotti to rekindle some joy in his life. We observe in the story that the peanuts bring joy to the monkey's life just like the kids do for Mr. Pignotti. When the kids break the trust of Mr. Pignotti, he loses the desire to visit Bobo, causing the monkey to miss the peanuts and his friend. Without this joy, the monkey slips away and dies. Later, Mr. Pignotti gathers the strength to go back to the zoo, only to discover that Bobo has passed away. This overwhelming sadness kills Mr. Pignotti. The monkey was a symbol for Pignotti's spirit. The joy died, and with it was his spirit.
One of the core themes in this novel was trust. This quality expresses negative and positive aspects of John, Lorraine, and Mr. Pignotti and their relationship together throughout the book. In the book, a lack of trust was prominent in both John and Lorraine's homes prior and post meeting Mr. Pignotti. John's mother and father were both untrustworthy of John and his choices. John creates a barrier from his family's troubles by drinking, smoking, and partying with all of his friends, along with the occasional burglary in his pastime. While Lorraine's lack of a relevant father figure led her mother to believe that every man has questionable intentions, including Mr. Pignotti, she later thought. Lorraine's mother made known her discontent for any and all men, especially those around Lorraine. Notably, trust was lost in Mr. Pignotti, John, and Lorraine's relationship when he comes home to their house party at his house. Before the house party, John said to Lorraine that they should have just a few friends for a quiet little drink. Don't you think Mr. Pignotti wants us to have a social life? Lorraine thought this was a bad idea, but as her best friend was all up for the idea, she thought she should be too. This decision and the events after brought their relationship to Mr. Pignotti to a standstill, and as Mr. Pignotti did not trust them anymore, trust was something that brought the main characters together and also tore them apart.
An important recurring word is honest or honesty. John and Lorraine's charity scam is what brings them to meet Mr. Pignotti in the first place. Though $10 is what they originally came for, they end up leaving with much more. They even feel enough trust in Mr. Pignotti to confess their scam, saying the words, we didn't do it to be mean, honest." When later betrayed, Mr. Pignotti loses his faith in the kids' honesty. Honesty is a word that each character gains and loses throughout the book.
Food for thought. The book teaches us various lessons through John, Lorraine, and Mr. Pignotti. They taught us the values of honesty, trustworthiness, and the importance of friendship. John and Lorraine not only learn more about Mr. Pignotti, but also themselves. One question to ask yourselves is, what does friendship mean to you?